What's up, guys? Remington Keyes here. This is the Nerd Talk podcast. Nerdy talk for nerdy fans. We got our regulars here, starting us off with Dan. Introduce yourself.
I'm Dan, Michael Jackson impersonator. Done some fan series stuff over the years, and but yeah, I'm known as Mr. Moonwalker. But yeah.
And Aiden, introduce yourself.
Hi guys, I'm Aiden. Nice to meet you. I'm from the Reviewing Kingdom. I'm the Reviewing Gamer. You can call me Aiden for short.
Okay.
And then we got two awesome guests here. We have Eric. It's Eric, right?
Yeah, it's Eric.
Eric Lewald, he's worked on X-Men animated series, Johnny Quest, Young Hercules, Chip and Dale, Winnie the Pooh, Tailspin, Beetlejuice, Darkwing Duck, Street Fighter, Gargoyles, RoboCop, Stargate, and Trolls animated series. And we have Julia Lewald, who's known for Strawberry Shortcake, X-Men, Ninja Turtles, Dog City, again, RoboCop, bunch of cool, and a lot of other cool stuff. We have them here on the show, joining us.
Woo! Hey guys.
That's a lot of shows.
Either you can answer first. This question goes for both of you. What exactly was your role on X-Men the animated series, and how did you guys become involved with it?
Neither one of us are artists. Let's get that out of the way right now.
we write the stories. You can't draw for worth a damn. So
we are writers.
It's on the storytelling side, and I got called in first. She ended up doing some scripts on the show, but I got called in first. The people at Fox Kids who ran Fox Kids wanted to do X-Men, and when they committed to doing the series, they had to pick somebody to run the show, showrunner, head writer, whatever, on the writer side. And I'd worked with the people there on a couple things, including a year of Beetlejuice. I ran a year of Beetlejuice the year before.
Yeah.
So they contacted me like the day before the big meeting when everybody got together to make the show and said, oh, guess what? Like the night before, you're doing X-Men, and it's going to be your show. And I said, oh, by the way, meeting's tomorrow morning. And I said, well, I don't really know the X-Men. So I had to learn real fast. And that's how that got started. It was just purely, I've worked with those folks before on other stuff, and they thought I was a tool for the job. I fit best.
And as far as what that means, being a showrunner on an animated show, Eric's responsibilities were coordinating with everyone in the room there to determine what the show would be. But then from that, producing what we call a show Bible, and then being responsible for every story and every season and every overall arc, and being responsible for every script.
Yeah.
You were in charge completely of the writing for the entire series run.
Yeah, it's kind of like a buck stop tier thing. Like you're hired to be the contractor to do 26 houses, and you hired carpenters and plumbers and everybody that you know that are good to help you out with it. But if you screw up, it's your fault. So you better hire the best writers, like hiring my wife on to Days of Future Past. So yeah, it's just. The project needs a supervisor, and that's what I got hired to do from the beginning. And so you won't see my name on more than a couple of the 76 episodes, but that's because I was making sure that they were all working and handing them to other people to do the 80% of the work to get the thing written, and then I'd make sure it all fit.
But that's why you get the develop for television by credit.
Right,
on the episode.
And I had to deal with all the politics and all the, Marvel and Saban and Fox and everybody. Each have their own needs for the show, and all the writers really have to do is just, write the stories.
That's all we have to do.
Yeah.
Well, looking you up, it certainly looks like you got the credits on IMDb and all.
Yeah.
It helps. Not helps, but you got called in the day before to go in for the X-Men meeting to go into Fox Kids to work on a completely different project that it was a different project completely.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a freelance universe. You go in for the jobs, you're off for the meetings, you make that happen, and then within 24 hours you go, no, we'd rather have you come in and talk about the second show. Okay, and that's the one that became X-Men. I mean, fate hands you crazy cards. It could have been the other way around.
Yeah, when you get started working out here, it's real piecework. You get, especially our friends that just write scripts but don't run shows.
Yeah.
A script maybe takes you 3 weeks of your life, and so we've got friends friends have written 300 scripts on probably 70 or 80 different shows.
Wow.
And when you're running a show, it obviously takes long. It's more like a year commitment, and X-Men was more like a 3-year commitment. But so if you want to make a living at it, you learn to be friends with everybody and write for everything that you can. So obviously you don't want to take stupid shows if you can help it, and you don't want to work for jerks. But you find the better shows and the better people, and you just work all over the place. And that's the way you make a living out here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
How many episodes were actually based on the comics? Like the storyline.
That's a valid question, because it was go way back, probably before you guys were born. Go way back. And when you got the call to go in and came home and said, it's X-Men, but this was before there were the big graphic novel publications. You couldn't just go to a comic book store and do a lot of back research. The internet didn't exist back then.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything Marvel that was based in New York at the time wanted to do, they had to photocopy it and send it to you snail mail.
Yeah, it'd take them about a week. I'd say, I'm curious about Nightcrawler, and a week later I'd get a couple of Nightcrawlers in black and white copy. So it was hard learning it. Luckily, the two guys, the two main producers, Will Mineo and Larry Houston, who designed the show, produced the show, directed 80% of the show.
Crazy talented artists.
Yeah. Those guys are big X-Men fans, and we had Marvel behind it, so they knew them backwards and forwards. I could just sit down and ask them all sorts of questions. But to answer Dan's question, not that many of them were directly from stories directly adapted from the books.
Yeah.
Especially since I didn't know the books, if I'd been a real fan and I'd had favorites, I might have just had a list of favorites. But there are a couple things. One is books are more like a 5 or 6 minute story if you try to play it out on TV. So adapting one to fill a whole half hour can be kind of hard. So it didn't really occur to us to just do it directly. What I did with the two main writers on the show, Mark Edens and Michael Edens, who were friends of mine from Tennessee, there were some things called Marvel Universe, where it was like a reference book where you have all the characters listed and what they've done in all the different books over 24 years and who they liked and who they fought with and what their relationships were. And so we started the story ideas that first season, the first 13 we did, with, except for Days of Future Past, which was one we directly adapted. The other 11 episodes were, let's take a Storm episode. Let's make a good Storm episode, or let's make a good Wolverine episode, or let's make a good Rogue episode. And so the three of us would just kind of dig through the research and say, well, what's Rogue like? Or what's about her that's most exciting and dramatic? And about, the fact she can't be touched. Okay, well, maybe she'd like to be the one person who might want to give her power up if she could.
Yeah.
And so that's why we came up with the first Rogue story. So we looked at it more as mining all the stuff that had been in the 25 years of comics to understand the characters and to pick details for fresh new stories rather than trying to adapt a specific story. Later we did the Phoenix and Dark Phoenix and a couple other big ones that we tried to keep as close to the original books as we possibly could. But I'd say 75% of the episodes were just, let's meet Nightcrawler. What's Nightcrawler like? Well, he's religious. Well, let's do something with religion and put it in a religious town. So we started from the characters and built the stories around it rather than starting from specific books.
Wow.
How intimately involved was Marvel Comics in the writing process?
They had some really nice people. They were much smaller then, believe it or not, because they hadn't had any of the movies. They hadn't had any TV shows. They were just comic book business, and they were not that big back then as they are now. And they were in New York, and they were about to go through bankruptcy, so they're having their problems. But there were a couple guys, Bob Harris, who's editor-in-chief, and Joe Calamari, who's like a senior advisor for the show. Great. He calls himself Joey the Squid on his email.
Yeah.
Those two guys would review every single thing we wrote.
Yeah.
We'd first say, we want to do a Nightcrawler episode, and they'd say, that's cool. We'd like to see him. We'd give them like a half a page and say, this is kind of the way we see the story. And they'd say, that's cool. Could you change a couple things? Then we send them like a 3-page version, then a 10-page version, then finally the 40-page script. And at each this we're not so sure of. This Nightcrawler wouldn't do this.
Yeah.
So we got real good backup. They had our backs the whole way, and they weren't at the same time they weren't intrusive. They weren't saying, "Well, you got to do the stories we'd want to do." We came up with the stories. They just told us if they fit or not.
Dan?
Remington, I'll have you answer. Have you do this question. You know more about it than I do.
Was there any point in the series where you decided you would possibly expand the team roster? Episodes throughout its run with Colossus, Morph, Nightcrawler, for instance?
Well, it was interesting just even hearing how the initial team was chosen, because X-Men, the comic books began in, 1963?
Right.
There were like 3 decades of material up until that point to work with already.
And like 30 people we could have used.
Easily.
Yeah.
And so the question in forming the team, when you got the call in February 1992, who will the X-Men be? And just making that decision up front required a lot of sort of brokering among the different people to determine who would be an X-Men for the animated show.
And all the business people and Marvel and everybody was real keen on making sure we got the right team. As far as writers go, we didn't really care that much as long as we had a real balance, all different sort of people. We didn't want, Wolverine and Cable both being big gruff guys. Colossus might have fit. Nightcrawler might have fit if we picked differently. Originally, Beast wasn't going to be a big part of the team that first month when we were developing the show. Marvel and everybody said, use him or don't use him. We don't care. But the writers liked him so much, we kept on pushing him into stories, and he ended up being part of the main team. But once we got the main team that first season, and the first season was done after the first 13, after the end of that big Sentinel story, we kind of felt like we needed to keep that main team as throughout the rest of the series. Now, we were going to end at 65, which we didn't. We ended up at 76. But when we thought we'd end at 65, the end of the series was going to be 2 or 3 people leave, like Gene and Scott leave, and I forget who else, and 2 or 3 new people come in, like Bishop. We're going to have Bishop come in.
Oh, that would have been cool.
Yeah, and Psylocke. We're going to have Bishop and Psylocke, a couple other people come in to be new characters. Mm-hmm. But we never got a chance to do that. So that was planned. It's a good question. It was planned to lose a couple and gain a couple, but we didn't get around to it.
But what's the deal with Morph? Morph is the most popular question we got. Every place I put, everyone's like, "Oh, why'd you bring Morph back? Oh, what's the deal with Morph?" And everyone's such a huge Morph fan. Like, was that,
It's your all's fault.
Yeah.
It's your all's fault. Because we argued, they never let anybody kill anybody in Saturday morning television for kids. And so we argued for a month saying, we gotta kill somebody. We gotta kill Wolverine's best friend so the fans will appreciate the X-Men, that something's at stake. And how important that was. So we got that through. We finished the season. The season comes on. It does great, and it's a big hit. Everybody loves it. And then we come back to do the second season, starting at episode 14, when Scott and Jean are getting married. Yeah. But not for real. And we're just getting started, and we get a phone call from network and say, "Guys, we got a problem. We just did a big poll, a survey of fans, and asked them who was their favorite X-Men character, and Morph won." We killed off Morph at the end of episode 2, and now they're staring us in the face and saying, if you can't do it, you can't do it, but we really, really want you to bring Morph back. If there's any way you can do it. So it was the fans' fault. Cause we were just going to leave him die. That was his whole purpose for being.
The whole purpose of being the show was to die.
And so we had. I thought it was fun the way we brought him back, but that's the reason he was dead and then he wasn't.
But also, just to put a cap on this, that Morph didn't really exist in the X-Men universe prior to Saturday morning, the animated show, and you guys were making light of it now, but it was with serious consideration that if you want to really have stakes and make this show matter and prove that there are consequences for actions, if someone dies, that's a genuine big deal.
Yeah.
And so then who would that be? So Marvel started to get a little nervous. I mean, well, everyone was nervous, but
Yeah.
the idea of what character that was going to be, you had to go through how many hoops to find something that became Morph and then became Wolverine's best friend that Marvel was comfortable with.
Yeah, because we found an old character in the books from like 1970 or something called Changeling, who had only been in a couple books, and he was a shapeshifter,
Yep.
and he had died in the books, sacrificing himself for Professor X to keep Professor X alive. And so we used that, said, look, they did it in the books, let us do it in the TV show. So fine, cool. So in the script, if you get a copy of the original script, he's called Changeling.
Yeah.
And just before we're going to record it, we get a note from Fox's lawyer saying, "Oh, Warner Brothers, DC Comics has a Changeling character. If you use the name Changeling, we might get a lawsuit." And we said, well, "Wait a minute, Marvel's Changeling was first." And he said, "Doesn't matter. We don't want a chance of lawsuit." So so we changed his name to Morph.
It's much like the Captain Marvel debate. Do you call him Captain Marvel or do you call him Shazam? Because
Yeah. No,
exactly.
And this was, 25 years ago when there were fewer lawyers in the room
Yeah.
than there are now.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a lot easier to get those sort of Easter egg drop-ins, too, that you might have seen.
A lot of people we've talked to have said, as when I saw at the end of episode 2 that Morph had died, I was hooked on the show. And this is different. There's what's going on here. I gotta find out more about it.
Were there any characters or mutants that you wish you could have done episodes for?
Oh, gee.
That's fair. That's an interesting question. Because part of the challenge was with the large number of players on the team. It wasn't Batman the Animated Series where you've got one guy. You had to service 8 people every episode, or at least explain where the other ones are if they're not being serviced in an episode. And that was a juggling act all of its own. Just splitting them up logistically and making sure it made sense that some were here, some were there. I was able to write on an episode, Whatever It Takes, which is a Storm story, and she goes back to the continent of Africa, and figuring out who goes with her and who stays behind and how that all gets answered was a lot of that requires, like I said, a lot of juggling right there.
Yeah.
Wanting to bring in more or other mutants wasn't so much as just, even for me as a writer, juggling the ones that we had.
Yeah, it was shot. Just to give you an idea, but there were writers and Larry Houston, the artist, producer, director, that were real X-Men fanboys.
Yeah.
And so they had lots and lots and lots of mutants that they wanted to put in the show.
Mm-hmm.
So the two things that would happen with us over the 5 years that it ran were that, if you look through the series, there's 76 episodes, there are all sorts of little cameo appearances. There's Spider-Man's wrist. There are all these other mutants that are on for like 5 seconds. There's Deadpool. There's Doctor Strange. There's all these people, and a lot of them Marvel wouldn't have let us put in legally because there were you have to get the rights or you have to okay it to the head office or whatever. Yeah. Larry would slip them in for fun, and so there are dozens and dozens of other mutants in there just in little bits and pieces as background characters, and that was Larry's doing. So. He obviously, if we could have gone to 300 episodes, Larry would have had ideas for all sorts of, getting into those things. And also, writers would do that too, but they do it kind of to an extreme, to where, say, we hired someone to do a Cable story, and we got Cable, and we got 4 of our guys, because you get 10 people in a room, and it gets kind of hard to write who's saying what. But you got Cable, and you got our guys, and then they would put in a dozen extra other mutants, each person with a power, each person with a backstory, each person with a relationship, and it would become so complicated that we just kind of lose our mind and we have to trim them all back out again. So there were just to make the stories kind of readable, kind of intelligible, we had to try to keep the number down, and that was an ongoing challenge, kind of like a balance. You want to introduce new fun things, but if you introduce somebody, you want to give them enough screen time to play out their powers and get to know what they're like and get to know who they care about. And so if you do that with 4 or 5 people, you've used up your half hour already.
Yeah.
That was the challenge.
Yeah.
Okay. How were you able to take complex social issues such as prejudice, isolation, racism, and religion and translate them into a format suitable for a Saturday morning program?
That's a good one. And if you're asking us that also, I hope, means that it feels like we got some of those issues across, or that we handled it in a way that, I'm seeing some heads nod here. Yeah?
Yeah.
The brilliance of just the X-Men, the idea of X-Men was you've got a group that's some other group that's in power doesn't like, and yet the X-Men themselves are part of that group and are also have sworn to sort of protect mankind because they are good people to do that. And it allowed itself in like the great allegories for something like the Twilight Zone, something like Star Trek. You could tell a really big story if you used mutants versus humans. Mm-hmm. And that lent itself to, I think, some very powerful stories that we told. And the religious was a remarkable story that got with Nightcrawler's character.
They almost didn't let us do it.
I want to give a shout out. Avery Coburn was the woman who was in charge of broadcast standards and practices for Fox Kids Saturday morning. And I can't think of anyone who had a tougher job, more.
What to leave in, what to leave out. She could have just said no
to everything.
You could just not do the story.
No more. She could have said no at any stage in all of these stories, and she didn't.
No,
even with the Nightcrawler episode, which was the first time I think ever in Saturday morning that an examination of religion, not yes, there's God, no, there's not God, but an examination of religion and what faith means to someone was ever played out in a kid's cartoon.
Yeah. To answer your question, we got real lucky with the team we worked with. It's kind of like we kind of put it like let's say a National Football League team. If you got to have all the coaches and all the players and everybody on the same page and everybody trying to do the same thing, because if you're not trying for the same thing, then you just don't. It falls apart. Yep. And 2/3 of TV shows we've been involved with, there were missing pieces. There were either a network executive that wanted a very different show from what the creative people wanted, or there was arguments among the team, or got the wrong cast, or whatever, or it was the wrong time for that show. A dozen different factors. All of these came together, and we were lucky this one time, because we've worked on 30 or 40 shows, and some of them have been real good, and some of them have sucked, to be honest. This one, it went right, and we have to thank those people, because to answer your question about the serious issues, the head guy at Fox, Sidney Iwander, who was our hands-on every day, he oversaw X-Men, Spider-Man, Tick, Beetlejuice. He was Batman. Wow. He was like the 9-year-old boy in charge of Fox Kids.
He read every script, went over every storyboard.
Every word of it. It wore me out. Somehow he had enough hours in the day to do all that. And he was a little bit of a mischief maker and a rebel, and a very serious guy about stories for kids. And he said, look, kids will get this stuff. There are all these other people telling you to dumb it down and take that stuff out. He said, kids will get this. Even if they're 5, they won't get all of it, but they'll get most of it. They'll get the feeling underneath it. So I want you to push this as far as you can. So the writers in the room with me are just going, all right. Because usually we don't get a chance to do that. Usually they'll just, no. You're writing for 6 to 11-year-olds, and they won't know what a broken heart is between a man and a woman. Screw that. Let us write intense stories and let the kids get what they get out of it. And we got that support all the way, the whole way through.
I know coming from television and stuff, I'm a director and writer, that it is hard to get stuff past, the executives.
Yeah. Exactly. And it was, again, going in the Wayback Machine, in 1992, Fox Network, I think, had been on the air for 4 or 5 years at that point. 3. ABC, NBC, CBS. Some people had cable, some people didn't. That was it. It's hard. This is magic what we're doing right now, talking to each other and staying connected like this. But back in the day, there were very limited places to go get material, to go see a cartoon show. Saturday morning, which doesn't even exist anymore, was a deal. And Fox Kids entered, and they entered with a big bang.
Yeah, they
and
wanted to.
upended the industry.
That was helpful. They said, well, we're little and we're not established like the other three big networks.
Yeah.
We got to make a name for ourselves. So they took more chances and they pushed the edge harder. And they did that on purpose.
One more thing you were mentioning about the bigger social issue questions. I forget who kind of pointed this out, but I liked it. If you want to tell it. But the Martin Luther King versus.
Oh right, yeah. It was very specific, and this was, I think, in some of the books in the 70s and 80s.
Also, because when X-Men started in 1963, it was more about teenagers coming to terms with their own bodies changing and what's it like to be, growing up and then not being.
Yeah, it wasn't so much about mutants and humans interacting. It was more like mutants fighting each other.
Right.
And it gradually in the 70s and 80s got to be a little more with people, and we pushed it more to be the interaction between mutants and normal humans, but all the other humans, because that way we could do the bigger social issues. If you just got superheroes fighting supervillains, the social issues don't really naturally come up. Yeah. But it was absolutely in the mind. I mean, producer-director Larry Houston's African American. From the beginning, we talked openly about Professor X is more Martin Luther King and Magneto is more Malcolm X. Neither one of them is wrong. Neither one of them is right. They care about each other. They care about the people they're fighting for, but they are at odds. And so that was underlying it from day one. And that helped us let those characters respect each other, yet be prepared to fight each other to the death for what they believed in. Mm-hmm. And that it made it real, and it made us be able to use, the LA riots were happening in 92.
Oh my God.
We used to get notes about that. I don't know, after Rodney King happened, the city was in flames. And so this was very tangible stuff in 1992, 93.
That's not the first time I've heard that comparison about the two. I've heard that from plenty of other people. Other people have said that before. So it's funny that you guys mentioned that.
There you go. That was there at the very beginning.
It was real because there are two reasonable positions on those. One of them is we need to work together. The other one is they'll never accept us.
Yeah.
And both of you can't argue that one's right and one's wrong. Obviously, we're leaning towards Professor X, but we never disrespected Magneto.
Yeah. Exactly.
It was.
And we hope that came through. I'm seeing your heads nod. I think.
Yeah. We're understanding. Yeah.
And I feel like some of the movies took what you guys did. Well, even the director there, Bryan Singer, says instead of reading the comics, he watched your animated series to get ideas for the movie.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Yeah, we'll take credit on that one. We're lucky enough to work with the guy that got the writing credit on that first movie. There were 6 or 7 stabs at the first movie, people writing it, and the guy that ended up writing it said, "Oh yeah, the way Brian didn't know the books, and the way he boned up on the characters was he sat down and watched our show." Yeah. So we'll take that one.
And I'll say this to anyone who listens. Eric's heard this 1,000 times, but you had your 30 years of X-Men comic books, and from 1963 to whenever. And then you have this billion-dollar film franchise that I'm looking forward to Logan coming out next year.
Yeah, can't wait.
It's phenomenal. But I'm convinced you wouldn't have this billion-dollar franchise if you didn't have X-Men the Animated Series as the bridge between the two. Because the film franchise capitalized on the team that you guys picked to be X-Men the Animated Series. It could still have been several different dozen mutants that they chose, but the ones they chose, those are the ones that then went on to be in the movies.
Yeah.
Well,
that's how the fans came to it.
I would say the same thing with Spider-Man the Animated Series. You wouldn't have the Spider-Man movie without the 90s Spider-Man Animated Series. Because it's very similar,
Yeah.
Also, it's like, for... Spider-Man, X-Men, Batman, those existed as comic books. But I do believe that for a lot of folks, the animated series of any of those was a gateway into the world of comic books. Not everyone who watched the show was into comic books, or even, but then, that exists. Let me go seek that out. Let me go find that.
Yeah.
So I think it opened the door for a lot of folks to get interested in comic books.
Yeah, if you get a chance, the guy that that supervised the showrunner on Spider-Man animated series named John Semper. He's a great guy, friend of ours, and that was a troubled series. They went through 3 or 4 people before they found the right person to run it, and he held it together, and he made it happen.
They got lucky when they found him.
And he's on all the social media. He's really easy to talk to.
Reach out to him.
So if you guys like the Spider-Man animated series, talk to him.
Dan, ask number 9.
All right. Okay. Despite premiering over 20 years ago, X-Men is still one of the longest cartoon series based on characters from Marvel Comics. Why do you think it's so successful?
You mean X-Men the animated series, and the folks remembering it, and
I know it's hard to say.
That is
because we both we've grown up. We had shows we loved as fans when we were younger, and then we watch them 10, 20 years later. Man, it's not holding up. It doesn't age well, and that's a hard thing to put your finger on.
Look, we know it's a cartoon. We're talking about a cartoon. We understand that. But I also understand that it really meant something to folks and continues to mean something to folks. And I'm going to suggest that it maybe because it happened to be half hour, it happened to be an adult drama, but it was shown on Saturday morning as a cartoon. And there were no apologies for it, no dumbing down of it. It was remarkable at the time for what the stories it was able to tell.
I think a fun part of it, and we can talk about it later, guys, if you're curious. We got a book coming out about it in July. Just so you know, I'm writing the Making of the X-Men TV animated show book, and it'll be coming for Comic-Con. It'll come out at Comic-Con next year.
That's gonna make Comic-Con blow up, man. That is gonna blow.
So we're gonna do a panel, and we'll have
from your lips.
We'll hope to have cast and crew down there, and it'll be cool. But the one of the things in there was that in going back and thinking about it and talking to everybody that worked on it, because I've had to do the book.
Been working on this for several months.
Yeah, for over a year now. I discovered something that most of the people have been working in our business at least 10 years, and they were ambitious people that wanted to do the show right, and they kept feeling like they weren't being allowed to, especially ones that loved X-Men and loved Marvel, like Larry and Will. And when we got this opportunity, and we had the people in charge, and we're looking up to them that are paying the bills, and we're saying we want to push this as far as we can, and they're saying yes. I think that made everybody work just that a little bit harder to make the show special, because you got this feeling like, okay, we finally got our show, we can't screw it up, So that may be part of it, Dan. I don't know, but that seemed to be a recurring theme when I talked to people that, we get a chance to just really let loose on this one. So cool, let's do it. Let's get it right.
Also, you can look at it now, and the animation, we had ultimately a fraction of the budget for some of the other bigger projects.
We worked at Disney, and we've got friends that worked on Batman. They had beautiful animation.
Gorgeous.
And ours was kind of garage band animation. But that's cool. I mean, we made it work, and that was a challenge of it.
The other thing, and Eric mentioning the making of book idea, is that I see you have a Batman poster on your wall there, Dan. There we go. That you have a company like Warner Brothers tends to support Batman for whatever anniversary or celebration or release it's coming out. Paramount supports Star Trek, but Dear X-Men got so splintered when Marvel went through bankruptcy back in the mid-90s that there is no company willing to step forward and say, "Hey, let's celebrate this sucker."
Yeah.
So we kind of looked at our friends who'd worked on this and went, "No one's talking to you. No one's talking to us. No." I guess it's going to fall to us to make
this.
All
to us to do the book, because nobody else is going to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what us on social media, and that's how we found each other too.
Yeah. We only set up Twitter and the website because we knew the book was coming.
Yeah.
And we started that just a few months back, so this is all new to us too. But yeah.
I know people on social media always, and even on YouTube, people celebrate this show. It's like, it's one of the most talked about shows I see on podcasts. and stuff, when they ever refer to like great Marvel properties, they always go X-Men the Animated Series, greatest animated series of the 90s, greatest superhero animated series. It's always up there in the list, you know.
Yeah.
Well, it's really gratifying to hear because we haven't even dipped our toe in that area yet. But that's really gratifying. Very gratifying.
Yeah.
And you guys are officially young grown-ups now too.
Yeah.
I mean, because the things you fall in love with as a child, you know, and well, you can revisit them again now through the magic of streaming and DVDs and stuff. And
it's all out there. It's just so cool.
Yep.
It's
and y'all growed up real good.
In the old days, if you missed something, you just missed it. There's no
looking up on the internet.
Oh, I think you guys were too young to be there for the good old Pizza Hut VHS videotape giveaway for X-Men.
started it off, man. That started it going. That was because it was before the show was ready. They had the first four episodes. Yeah, and I wore mine out.
I see Dan waving his hand there. Yeah. But that's like, VHS tape or not, you couldn't. Otherwise, there was no way to see it if you didn't catch it.
Yeah.
Ironically, that's how I discovered the 80s Ninja Turtle show.
I believe it, but that's also part of it. The joy of discovery, finding things like that, hearing from friends what you want, what they're watching, and what you want to see, and what you don't want to miss. You know, appointment television after school or on Saturday morning. Sometimes
my dad has every Magnum PI on VHS. Was still with the Gary Coleman commercials. Burger King commercial.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What was the reason for choosing Jubilee instead of Kitty Pryde as a teenager of the group?
Good question. Because she's definitely, we couldn't have both. There wasn't room for two teenage girls, and it was absolutely a Marvel decision. They were a little higher on Jubilee at the time, and also a couple years earlier, there'd been an attempt to do a promotional thing called Pride of the X-Men. It was a little one-off, and that was made specifically to try to see if there could be interest in the show, and people didn't bite on it. The story wasn't quite right. And
Wolverine had an Australian accent.
They made some mistakes on that one. And so maybe that lingered from Marvel, thinking, well, we messed up with Kitty Pryde. Let's try Jubilee this time. But two or three of the characters were specifically Marvel thinking at the time. They said, okay, we just introduced Gambit. We really want to push him because I don't know. Gambit worked out great for us, but I don't know if he's a better character than Nightcrawler or Colossus or a bunch of other people we could have picked. He worked out fine, but it was very, very much was Marvel at the time saying, okay, we've got plans for the next year or two. We're high on Gambit, we're high on Jubilee, they want Cable in there, and that's why we had him guest a lot. So there's 3 or 4 people that they were pushing that it was very, very much came from them, and that's what there was. That was answered in about 5 minutes. Everybody says, "Is it going to be Pride or Kitty Pryde or Jubilee?" So, let's do Jubilee, and boom, next question. But it was a definite decision at the top level.
Well, it's funny that you said Marvel was high on Gambit, but now they're struggling to make a Gambit movie.
Yeah, they are. That's that. I don't know if they ever quite got him or what. I mean, and I don't know how he may not work as a lead character. I mean, there's some people that work better as an interesting side character in stories like we usually had him with us, and may be too mysterious or too low key or whatever it is that may just not fit as a lead. I don't know.
We have 2 questions and they kind of go together. So this will be, I'll take this one for you guys as the final question. What projects are you currently working on? Which project's going to be releasing in the first for the projects that you're working on? And then where do you think you guys will be in 25 years?
Well, I hope we're still alive.
Check back with us then.
Yeah. I don't know if you know how old we are. We got children in their mid-20s.
Yeah.
So
my oldest sibling's 40. So
very cool.
All right. We tend to work either as showrunners on a show where we handle the whole series run, or write individual episodes for other folks who are running shows. And we just recently finished up an episode for Transformers, Robots in Disguise, that'll be coming out in the next couple of months, maybe even the end of this month.
Looking forward to it.
Finished writing the first season of a project that's supposedly going to be a big deal in China. We'll see.
There's a lot of international money going around these days. We did nine scripts for an old friend of ours for this Chinese show. What the heck's it called now?
Bolt the Magic Deer.
Bolt the Magic Deer. It's kind of like their Mickey Mouse for a theme. They've got a bunch of big, huge theme parks there, like Disney does.
Yeah.
And they've got a group of animals that's there, which is a whole different feeling kind of writing. And we did a show for a Singaporean company called Dream Defenders, which we were story editors of, which is on Hulu. It's about 26 episodes.
That was the first one that was done wholly in 3D. So
yeah, it's done in 3D, which is weird because you have to try to write it a little different.
And we just finished writing for a friend for a project that's going to be it's a boys action adventure that'll be on Netflix coming out in 2018. That right now is called Robozuna. So
it's kind of like Real Steel meets Mad Max Fury Road, only a little younger.
Where were you guys when I was writing my pilot for Disney?
Well, we're still here.
Yeah, we're still here. And also, for the next 2 years, but I got to spend the next 6 or 7 months finishing the book, make sure it's okay. And then we plan to spend, like twice a month, go to cons.
Yeah.
And it's like a 3 or 4 day commitment each time you go. And so we'll do panels, we'll sell the book at tables. And so that's going to cut into our writing like crazy because it's a lot of work to make that happen, right?
But the 25th anniversary only comes around so often.
Right. Yeah. So next year, next October, man, 25th.
And February 17th through the 20th, 2017, we'll be down at San Diego Comic Fest, which is a little bit different than which is a smaller mini con kind of thing, but wonderful people, lots of fun.
Dan, I hear there's a really good con in Seattle, like is it Emerald City?
Yep.
And so that's going to be one.
We hope to. None of this is carved in stone.
We gotta schedule them out so that we can move around and not spend all the book money on plane trips and stuff. But we're gonna hit that probably in 2018.
I totally understand the con life because that's what I do. Pretty much for a living is travel to cons and do panels. And, I've worked with, Rika Muranaka, who's composer for the Metal Gear Solid games. I have my podcast, which has now 24,000 likes on Facebook. And, so I've been traveling a lot, Aiden's here as part of the thing.
Hi.
I'm working on a movie. Hopefully Dan will be able to be in the movie. So right now it's very pre-production. We're working on getting Kickstarter, so I totally understand,
Yeah, no, it's going to be a big deal. But
if we can also put in a plug, though, we found each other through our being on Twitter, which is it's X-Men TAS, it's at X-Men TAS for X-Men the Animated Series, and we've got our website, which is xmentas.com. So if folks want to go there, we'd appreciate that too.
And we put something up just about every day. We got about 90 posts up on the blog so far, and we try to do, say, 6 a week, and try to put up stuff that's interesting for the fans, and put up stuff from our other people involved in the making of the show.
I'll say this one last thing in respect to the book. It was dumb luck that everything was on paper back then. And it was further dumb luck that we ended up keeping basically everything. We have every first draft, we have every note, we have every email, we have
storyboards that were drawn for the show. I just, kind of like pack rat, you just file them away, and before you know it, you got 76 boxes of stuff, and it with luck, we'll be able to put a lot of it. We're already putting a lot of it online, but we'll be able to put a lot of it into the book.
All right, well, that's the end of our show. Thank you guys for listening. Tell my fans where they can find you. Well, you pretty much did, but
one more time, at X-Men TAS on Twitter and xmentas.com.
Right, and check out we did an hour interview for Screen Junkies, so check us out on Screen Junkies.
Oh, please go watch the Screen Junkies honest trailers for X-Men the Animated Series.
Honest commentary.
Yeah.
But honest trailer too is a hoot.
It's on Screen Junkies. It's on the Screen Junkies Plus app. So.
Yes.
You got it.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Yeah. So good talking to you guys, Remington, Dan.
Aiden.
Oh, hell.
Well, Dan, tell us fans where they can find you at, real quick.
You can find me on Facebook, Mr. Moonwalker 94, YouTube, Mr. Moonwalker 94, Twitter, same exact thing, Instagram, Mr. Moonwalker.
And real quick, Aiden, tell the fans where they can find you.
You guys can find me on YouTube at The Reviewing Kingdom. And then if you want to find me on all my social media stuff, those will be on the link in the description below in my videos.
You can find me on all social media sites under Remington Keyes or RemDogg 105. Thank you guys for watching, and until next time,
Stay
bye-bye.
slothy.
Thanks, guys.
No problem.
No
Thanks
problem.
for coming on.
Oh, guys, thank you so much.
Oh,
All
no
right,
problem.
great. Let's stay in touch.
Yeah.
Definitely.